Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of our healthcare project management class. I hope that you're enjoying the class so far and learning a few things about project management. Some of the terminology is different than what you may already be used to, but in and of itself, project management really isn't all that hard. If you think about it, it's about a group coming together to form a team. That team's been given something, a project, if you will, or something to do. A project is known by that it has a start date and an end date, and project management is about managing that project. Now, within that, there are timelines and budgets and communication plans and making sure that we understand exactly what the outcome of the project is supposed to be, things like that. But in general, everybody's done projects, everybody understands projects, but the bigger they get, the more need there is for a process and for a flow and for some procedures so that things don't get out of control, things start happening that you don't know about, and then there's failure in the project and frustration and that kind of thing. This week we're going to be talking about two things mainly that you've already heard a little bit about. First of all are the stakeholders. Stakeholders are different than shareholders. A lot of times people get that confused. A shareholder is someone who has invested in the company and is expecting to get some kind of financial reward back for having partial ownership in the company or having lent the company money, that kind of thing. And that's a shareholder. They certainly have opinions and desires and things that you have to worry about. Certainly if a major shareholder is not happy, that is a problem for a company. But then there's stakeholders. And stakeholders really are defined as anyone who is influenced or is influenced by or influences the company, if you think about it, or the healthcare unit. Stakeholders can be patients, they can be stockholders, if you will. They can be the employees, the nurses, the medical assistants, the pharmacy techs, the doctors, all the different jobs represented in that unit. Stakeholders can be the rescue squads, fire department, police officers, anyone who deals with that medical unit. It could be the families of patients, as they certainly are affected by the unit. And then I think of regulatory areas, whether it's local, federal, state, accrediting bureaus, things like that. All of those are stakeholders. All of those have an influence on the organization. All of them are influenced by the organization. So as we start developing projects, one of the important things not only to understand is in terms of, what is the project supposed to be? What are we supposed to do? What does the end result look like? But who are all the stakeholders? Who should we be communicating with? Who should we be worried about? Who will influence us on the project? Someone may show up and you're doing a good job and they don't like the way you're doing it per se, something like that. So stakeholders are very important. A lot of leadership will look at the stakeholders and then rank them in terms of their importance, because you can't be all things to all people. So they would use a simple ranking scale to say which of the stakeholders are the most important, and we would go from there. The second piece that we'll talk about this week is the communications plan. One of the important things that a project team has to do is regularly communicate with the project sponsor, and that would be the person who asked the team to do the project. You also have to have regular communication with the stakeholders because, one, they're going to want to know what's going on and how is the progress of the project, but also they'll give feedback that will help you as a project manager and a project team make sure you're going in the right direction. So it's important to build a project communication plan. And that plan could be that we have meetings once a week, or maybe once a day, once a month. Will we do videos? Would we have just face-to-face meetings? Will we send out emails? What kind of communication plan do we need to communicate between the team and the various stakeholders. So that's what you're up to with a communication plan. It's important because when people don't have good communication, things fall through the cracks. In the lack of information, people start believing things that may not be true, or they start listening to rumors, things like that, and then you have problems later down the road. So it's important to know who the stakeholders are. It's important to have a really good communications plan to talk to them. Peter Senge wrote the book The Fifth Discipline, where he talks about learning organizations and looking at organizations as a system. And he noted in his book that leadership rarely communicates as well as they ought to. And a lot of times that leaders think they are communicating about change, that they're telling people what's going on, but in real practice they're not communicating anywhere near enough. So that's an interesting concept. That's the kind of things that we'll be talking about this week. I want you to keep up the good work. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you in class.